This stuff Yerushalmi Shekalim. The article also additional Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. The second line Manda Amar, which in the Vilna Yerushalmi is on Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, and in the Vilna Babli Yerushalmi is on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. It is it's in parentheses. The fifth line from the bottom. Okay, so this is actually going on the Gemara, the Mishnah in Yoma. So, Man Makshera called the Balim knows, going to be that all the people in our Mishnah are Ksherim. Al Kulara Mer Zechet Tzaddik Bracha. All there in Mishnah Yoma it says Zechet Tzaddik Bracha. Now, in order to understand this best, it's probably better to see the Korban Eidah. Kulana Omer Chulei. Ahod the time Perikim of the Yuma. It's going on the Mishnah in the third parak of Yuma. The base garmer Lora to Lamed Amilis Lechem Aponim. The base garmer they not want to teach how to make Lechem Aponim. Basically, so Lamed they don't want to teach how to make the Ktoris. Hugas ben Levi Yodeh Perak Bashir. Hugas ben Levi knew how to sing. Lora so no, he didn't want to teach it. Ben Kamtsar Lora so made him He didn't want to teach how to write the Shem Hashem with all four fingers, one letter per finger simultaneously. On the first ones it says Zechet Bracha, and on the last ones it says Shem Hashem Yerkav. That's what it says there in Yoma. The Kamar says, according to the opinion of our Tana, according to the opinion that our Tana counts all the people are kosher. So it means everybody in our Mishnah is kosher. But the base garment base of this are kosher. Because the Tana mentions them here. And Gemara there gives a reason why they didn't want to teach what they knew, because they didn't want over the Avodah Zarah to learn the secret and make miraculous seemingly miraculous lechem apanim and ktores for Avodah Zarah. So therefore, Shem Hashem Yerkav with Ben Kamsu Chulikai, it's only going to Ben Kamsu didn't have any such an excuse about teaching the Ksav. Madamar Mishael Boso Dormano, Masha Bedoro, the Hebrew says no, they were the ones in the generation of Shiva Sion or the ones in the generation of the Tana and the Mishnah. So then they're not necessarily ksherim. So Aklonu Meshem Mishem Yerkav is going like the Pashat in the Mishnah itself in Yuma, that there was no excuse for them, and therefore on all of them it says Shem Mishem Yerkav, even on Beis Garmu and Beis Avtinas. So that's the on whom does it say Zechet Tzaddik Bracha? If it's not going on these people, it's going out Ben Kotin B'Chaver on Ben Kotin and his friend. And as Reb Chaim brings down here, Ben Kotin is numerated there as having made 12 faucets for the cure, which only used to have 2. Or the Kohanim were doing the morning avodah could be Makai Shadim Bragleim at once. Also, it's mentioned Munbaz, the king, made all the handles of the kelim on kippur of gold. So those are mentioned Lishvach. And on them it says Zechet Tzaddik Bracha, not on the ones who were doing the various different crafts for the Beis HaMikdash. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, it says, so this is a pasuk in Yeshaya and Nun Gimel Yud Beis. First of all, I should say, we'll tell you the pasuk is Zechet Tzaddik Bracha Shem Hashem Yerkav. It's pasuk in Mishle Yud, same pasuk, right? It says the tzaddikim are commemorated for good, and the name of the wicked will rot. And this pasuk is in Yeshaya and Gimel Beis. Therefore, I'll distribute to him among the masses. With the great, he will divide up the loot. Because he put his soul on the line to die. He went with the criminals. But he bore the sin of the masses, and he davened for the criminals. Is going on. Simple shot is that it's going on Moshiach. So this is from Yeshaya and Gimel, as I said. So the Gemara Darshans Ze Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva Shehiskin Medish Halochas Vagodos, who made the Medrash Halachos Godos, and this is obviously a great accomplishment, among the greatest of all. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva is one of the greatest of all generations. Yeshu, some say Anshei Knesset Godos. Some say no. This is the going on the Anshei Knesset Gedola who did whatever they did, which Gemara now explains. Actually, no, this is going to be a keeper. What it now explains. That's actually quite a simple pshat, but not quite Korban Eidah. So I'm going to go with the Korban Eidah shot. But first I want to see the Korban Eidah on what he says here. Korban Eidah says references the end of the pasuk also, and Rabbi Akiva's death on Misa Kiddush Hashem Tachat Sheher Ran of Shalamus. So it's not it's not just the Medrash Halachos Haggadah, but also the end of the pasuk going to Rabbi Akiva as well. The Shizkim Medrash. And that's what he says next to Korban she's going to marry Shadosh to Sabarabim. First of all, he made, like he was called the Sarser of Tersh Bapeh. He was the primary Tana of all the Tanoim, from which all Tersh Bapeh really emerges. And Shadosh Sabarabim. Rabbi Akiva says any person who's most nefesh to do this, to make I guess any of these things makes Medrash Halachos and Haggadah, and also most of Nefesh Kipshuto is a certain aspect like Rabbi Akiva. Now it said the change the gears so best. Assuming Elu Anshei Knesset Shiskinu Klolim Pratim Torah. So it is going to they made Klolim Pratim Torah. They made the generalities and the specifications of the Torah. And again, that's according to the Korban Eidah. According to the Pesach, what's going to Akiva. And the Reb Chaim says that close the practice Moshe Mitzvah b'chol davar klal Omar Rabbi Akiva. Kamaduchte, I guess it means. But it's Kamaduchte klal Rabbi Akiva. So according to some, it's going. Klal Pratim is going on. According to us, Klal Pratim is going on Rabbi Akiva. And I want to read the Taknin Chadatin on that. He says, Klal Pratim klolim k'mo klal Rabbi Akiva kulus timoi klal elachos upratos. All the Stam Mishnayos going to Akiva, the general halachos and the details shall darish quotes for quotes, as we know they used to darshan tagin in each and every tag in the Torah. He darshan tim shal halachos shachizaso mitagin doraisa. He had this the grip on tagin doraisa, and Ben Gerim. It says that this is on account of his being from a family of Gerim. So much he's so Kabbalistic about that tagin, I guess the quotes which come out from the letters, they're not the letters themselves, and perhaps somebody comes from outside Yadus, being a Ben Gerim, he's particularly suited to darshan them. So fascinating talking Chadatin. Omer Darsheni really requires some analysis. I'm sure you know talking Chadatin. If he said it, must be from the basement of Shoshal Agra, must be profound there. So again, the either El Mashis Kinzeh is going to Kiva, what was he Masakin Kloni Protein, or what's going on and Anshei Knesset Gedola were the ones who were Masakin, Mishnah, Medrash, etc., or this is going on Anshei Knesset Gedola. But Kivatako himself was Masakin, Medrash, Halachos Haggadah, and the Anshei Knesset Gedola, they made Kloni Protein. You can go either way. Okay, Rabbi Avo. Rabbi says, "See mishpachos soifin yeshva yavetz." So there's a pasuk in Divrei Yomim Al Beis Nun Hey. Mishpachos soifin yeshva yavetz. Teratim shimatim sukasim hema kinim aboim mechamas avi beis reichav. So these are the mishpachos sofrim were yeshva yavetz. So what were they doing? Matam lomer sofrim. What does it mean that they were sofrim? So the Gemara says that Elisha Osu es Torah sfuros sefuros. They made the Torah sfuros, which is an interesting language. The Talmud Chadatin says sfuros means that shekadeshu neged eni oskim bo zachur v'shamur. They put things into categories in order to make things easier to preserve and to remember. And Kormei says something similar. They gave numbers to things, and that's how they categorize them in order for people to be able to recall what exactly the principles were, or the halachas were. The Reb Chaim says that it's mentioned here the Yoshua Yavetz, that they were from the base Medrash of Yavetz, who of course was Osniel ben Kenaz. Okay, and these are the evidently principles which they made very early on. If that's the case, they're already from the house of Yavetz. Chamisha lo yitramu. Five people should not give truma. Five things rely mechalo. So this would be very early Mishnayos, maybe from the times of before Pius Rishon, but the base manager of Yavetz in the time of Sheftim. Chamisha say nashim poshos so same. They exempted source from Yibum. Shloshim Shesh Krishas B'Torah, 36 times get Christ Torah. Shlosh so davar nivas of Torah, 13 halachas about the nevela of an of a kosher bird. Arba was Nezikin, the four overarching categories of Nezikin, beginning Baba Kama. Avos Malchus Arba Chasa Achas, the 39 Malachas. So they already made these categorizations to make things easier to remember. Rabbi Acha says, Ezra Kohen Sofer. This is a pasuk in Ezra, Zayin Yirav. Zeh Pashegan Ishtavan Ishnasan Amel Atachshasta LeEzra Kohen Sofer Divrei Mitzvos Hashem B'Chukah Yisrael. He gave this Pashegan Hanishtavan. So this is the writ which was given to Ezra, who's called Ezra Kohen Sofer Divrei Mitzvos Hashem B'Chukah Yisrael. So Ezra Kohen Sofer. So okay, he says already he's a scribe. Ma Tamul Sofer. Why say a second time is Sofer? Right, it seems redundant. So just like the Sofer in Divrei Torah, and the so too is a Sofer in Divrei Chachamim. So very interesting talking Chanit in here. In the words of the mitzvahs of Hashem, who Torah Shebiksav. That's Torah Shav Kamosh Kos Hashem, who Sofer Meir Torah Hashem. He was an expert scribe. Who Kavi Yisrael Zel Torah Shebal Peh. It's also Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebiksav Gam Umas Nichtav Ba'Be'er Eitei B'Shim Lashon. The Torah Shebiksav has also been for the nations of the world, and therefore it's also going to be written. It's written in so many languages. And that the Chukah Yisrael, that's specifically the laws of Am Yisrael. So therefore, he was able. He did. It was Sofer and Divrei Torah, Kara Sofer Divrei Chachamim, and presumably it's a similar thing to what what we attribute to the Yoshua Yavetz. So I'm not sure if he's saying that Ezra did the same, repeated what the Yoshua Yavetz did, or he did a new thing of his own, but a similar idea that he would made Klolim in Torah. So there are two things in the pasuk here. It says Sofer twice, right? Sofer, right? And it says Divrei, also therefore Divrei Torah and Divrei Chachamim, and also the end of the pasuk is kind of an elaboration of that. Divrei Mitzvah Hashem Chukah Yisrael, right? So they're both aspects. The pasuk is telling us so for this and so for that, both Divrei Torah and Divrei Chachamim. Rabbi Chagai b'Shem Mishum Menachem said, "Harishonim chorshu v'zoru v'nikshu kischu idru kotzu imru doshu." They did all these malachas, which are the malachas of past. It goes on. Zoru, baru, tachnu, hirkidu, lashu, kitfu, v'afu. It's a 50 malachas for Siddur HaPas. So they did all these things to prepare Torah. The Talmud Chadatin says to look at this Chidush HaGoros, how these Tesva, the Inyan Tesva Malachas Baruch, evidently explains how these 15 halachos have to do with learning Torah. So let's see if as many as we can translate it. Choshu, they plowed. Zora, they planted. Nikshu, they hoed. Kischu, they prune, or they removed the spare branches. The idru, I think, is also a form of hoeing, right? Nikshu is to remove the plants you don't want to grow. Kischu, I think, goes on trees. Idru, no, can't. They all have to go on different types of planting of wheat grain. So nikshu is to weed. Kisku is to remove the spare ones. Idru, I guess, to hoe and make sure nothing foreign grows. Kitsu, they harvested. Imu, they made sheaves. Tashu, they threshed. Zoro, they winnowed. Baru, they sifted. Tachnu, they ground. Here, Kidu, well, that baru is before sifting, so actually it's removing the bad kernels. Tachnu is to grind. Here, Kidu is to sift. Lashu, they kneaded the dough. Kitfu, they set the bread, the loaves. Vafu, they baked. Vanu ein lanu ma lechol. So we don't have what to eat. In other words, that we don't have people to properly understand the Torah, even though they try to make it easy for us. Rabbi Abba Bazin Hashem Rabbi Zia says, in had very famous Gemara, in havun kamoy malachim. If the earlier generations like malachim, on a bnei Yinish, were human beings. Being havan bnei anash, if they were people, on kachamerim, we are like donkeys. And this is in the Bible. Also on, I think in the Bible it's the lushes in Hebrew, in Shabbos Daf Kuf Yud Beis Omer Beis. So and the Gemara says, again, paralleling that sort over there, on Raimana Bahi Shaita Omrin, at that time when they made that drasha, they said, when they made this, they said, it's Agata, Afil Chamarta Pinchas ben Yoyer. Lo, we're not even like we're not, when we say we're like a Chamor, we're not even like the Chamor of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer. So before I get to Chamor Pinchas ben Yoyer, this is obviously many interpretations given on this Gemara where it appears in the Bavli, and here one can give many interpretations as well. But I just want to mention an interesting thing about Talmud Chadatin. He says that Chamorin is the same as letters as Romach, Resh Mem Ches, and he says that Chamorim Shagover Chomer B'Golus had B'Golus. Torah mitzvos, the chomer became great in the materialism in the Ghost, because she'ein lanu romach, we don't have the reish mem, the romach, which is the spear, which is the remach mitzvos asay l'chom, with which to fight. Ki nigru rubi mitzvos b'golos, because most mitzvos don't apply in Golos, especially outside of Eretz Yisrael. Chenksi makavis soreh b'goyim ein Torah. So we became like Chamorin because we have no Romachim. We don't have the Ramach Mitzvah Saseh, which is a very interesting shot. So what's the story with the Chamor Pinchas ben Yoyer? That we're not like that. Chamar Teid Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer Gnav Sali Stoy B'Lelia. It was the second here. No, going back here to Hi Shaita. So the Moshe brings down that the Hi Shaita is referencing a Gemara in the Mai, first part of Mai Loch Gimel. For the Mai Sehosam El, the story which is brought down there, Rabbi Yirmiyah Shok Rabbi Zira Chad the Misana the Te'enim Lo Matakna. He would send Rabbi Zira a basket full of the figs, which are not Meiser. Some was that, and he assumed that they lied to each other. Mary said, how could Rabbi Yirmiyah send me something which is not fixed? How could Rabbi Zira eat something which is not sure? If it's fixed or not. In between their two lying at each other, they were eating his table. And when he found out later on they ate thing which is not fixed, he said this statement. We're the shaying like malachim, we're like Bnei Adam, and if not, they're Bnei Adam, we're like chamorin. And then he says, "Beishaitek sheilo kach Rabbi Zira, Amar afilu chamar de Birchas Zira lo yedamina." We're not like the chamar Birchas Ben Yair, who, as we shall see, did not eat tevel. Chayu de l'kamon, as the story about to see. So that's Amar, but he's shaita Amrin. At that point, when Rabbi Yerushalmi Shekalim had the story, at that point they said, "How is it? What's the story? The story is well known. The donkey Rabbi Pinchas Ben Yair was stolen by the bandits at night. Of das Tamira Gabun Tlesi Yomei. They hid it for 3 days. Lo tam maklum, and it not eat anything. Besides Tlesi Yomei, after 3 days, imuchum chazarta. They decided we're going to give it back. We're going to remove it from here. Lo temas gabon. I guess they didn't literally give it back. They went to in the Yerushalmi Demai. It says lebora. They just wanted to send it out, not necessarily give it back. Why? The lo temas gabon shouldn't die by them. Afkuna, so they just sent it out. As come and say Atar, the Mara went to its master's gate. Shayas Menakon, it started braying. Alone, so they said to the members of his household, open the door for this poor donkey. The 3 days it hasn't eaten anything, because evidently it doesn't say this here, but perhaps the food that they would have given it would not have been, since they're bandits, I assume they were not makbid. They were eating food which is not mesukah, not meiser. That's what Chaim says. Lo mesukah, the food by the bandits is not meiser. Okay, so they brought it to they came to the gate over here, and I think according to the Bible brings it down. This is talking about an inn. Was an inn because in his own house they probably knew not to feed a devil. So a Paschal law, Alas law, Armalon Yavel lo Techel, give it to eat. Yom Kumasarim v'lo ba'is mechal. They put brought in front of it and would not eat. Armalei, so they said to Rabbi Pinchas, Rabbi lo ba'is mechal doesn't want to eat. Armalei, so Rabbi Pinchas said, "Metukim metaknin." This has been food been properly meisered. Armalei in. They said yes, it's been properly fixed. So he said, "Armalei varim to the mine." What do you mean it's properly fixed? Is it supposed to take off meiser from the mai? In other words, they thought he was asking the way the way the Mepharshim explained here, whether it was fixed from, it was clean food, or the refuse was removed from it, and he meant no. Did you take off the two mices of Demai, right? Because it wasn't meiser. So they said, "What do you mean meiser Demai?" Looking, Alpha and Rabbi didn't teach us how to kech zer lebehema. If you take liz zer lebehema, it says here, let's go with a lamed liz zer lebehema. You to buy it for planting or for an animal. Kemach leoros, flour for working hides. Shemen leor, oil for illumination. All these things are part of the might. So we don't have. It's for an animal. There's no din of the might by an animal. Amalei, so they said to them, Manavid lahado lifta. What can we do for this poor animal? Tihi machmarta al garma sakin. She's very machmir on herself. So therefore, I'm the mine. So it was the taco was the mai, and they removed the mices which are necessary to remove from the mai, and v'achals, and it ate. The article brings out another 13. According to Bavli and Chulin, that they were clear about pidin, that this barley had initially been designated for Michael Behema, Michael Adam, for human consumption, therefore it's chayv in the mai. But according to Yerushalmi, it's not mashal. According to Yerushalmi, it's mashal. It's a special chum the animal had, and the holiness of a person, like Reb Tzaddik says, the holiness of a person becomes a holiness which diffuses then to all the things that he owns, all the things that come that are under his influence, that's why tzaddikim mamon chovei aleim yersim nafsham, because they have this they're property takes on their characteristics. Yaakov went back for the Pachim Ktanim, and there's this idea that the kedusha of a person extends to his property. So this chumrah came from the holiness of Pinchas ben Yair and spread to his animals. Okay. The Gemara says, I want to mention just one more thing. Going back to the Gemara of Yerushalmi Shekalim, it's famous from Tzadok. A few places they asked the Rabbunim, how can the Gula come? We expect the Gula in our generations. If earlier generations were on a much higher madrega, and the Gula didn't come for them, how's the Gula going to come for us? And Rebbe Rabbunim answered, and it's supposed to be actually, Tzadok didn't ask him, so didn't see Rabbunim, it was Talmud of his Talmud. But he says the name Rabbunim, that the Rebbe Rabbunim was asked a question, and he was responding. He said that even though the generations are getting lower and lower, the Nekuda Pnimis gets higher and higher. And the understanding is that because we're Bnei Adam or Chamorim, in much more difficult situation, our avoid is much more precious. Because there for them, it was much easier to be Oived Hashem. And it was much higher madrega. For us, our avoid is much more difficult. So our avoid, even though it's in a much lower madrega, from Tzara Agra, because we have to put so much effort in it, so Mirut Hashem, the Gula will come in our time because of the chavivus of the avoida in the great depths in which we find ourselves. Okay. So the Gemara goes back to Mishnah and Psachia Alakinim. And we talked about Psachia, who was in charge of the Kinim. Obviously, he was very, very smart. The Gemara says, come and see how great this person was. He was able to open up matters and expound them. Posech here means open up difficult matters and expound them. Like we said, Masechta Skim is the heart of his Masechta. He also knew 70 languages. And I think there's a thing where I was saying, look at this. He knew the hardest stuff in Shas, and yet still he knew the 70 languages, right? But the way the article has it, no, it's a separate thing, right? Not Posech Darshan, period. The next part of the Mishnah, let's talk about that. But no, I think they're linked together. Which is an amazing thing that was able to accomplish both things together. Okay, so Gemara says, Tani says, Sanhedrin has two people who know how to speak all 70 languages, and the other people, even though they don't know how to speak them, but they know how to hear them, that's suitable to be Sanhedrin. So we see not everybody in Sanhedrin knew all 70 languages; they were just capable of hearing them, and capable of hearing them. It seems that they actually understood it, but maybe also still Maturgaman. Not sure. Anyway, there's a discussion of how important it is in order to examine the witnesses. Shlosha, if they have three people who speak 70 languages, I raise a beinus. It's the average one. 2 is the minimum, 3 is average. Arba, I raise a chama, and 4, that's a really smart person. Yavne, Arba, and Yavne, there are 4 people who spoke 70 languages, and they are Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Ben Chachinoi, Rabbi Ben Masya. Okay, and that brings us to the top of Lam Alf, and it's like a long Pesachim day even. Okay, so we'll stop here for today.